The Vampire Diaries had several heartbreaking deaths, but this particular one is still upsetting 8 years later. It's worth noting that all of the main characters died at some point during the Vampire Diaries 8-season run. While some, like Jeremy, were brought back to life, others weren't so lucky. Fortunately, it wasn't all doom and gloom in Mystic Falls as the show concluded on a happy note. While death wasn't something new in the Vampire Diaries, there was controversy when it came to who died in the show because some characters deserved much better happy endings. Stefan's death was particularly heartbreaking given that he had finally become human after battling being a Ripper for most of his vampire life. Despite the tragic turn Stefan's story had taken, there is another Vampire Diaries character who deserved much better than what happened to them. Enzo is killed in the Vampire Diaries as he and Bonnie are making plans for their future. Enzo and Bonnie didn't get their happily ever after. After being on the Vampire Diaries for 3 seasons, Enzo is killed in the 11th episode of season 8. During a discussion about how their future would pan out, Enzo and Bonnie had decided that she would take the cure from Elena and give it to him so that he could become human. The couple wanted to have kids, and they couldn't do that if Enzo remained a vampire. Tragedy struck just as Bonnie managed to get a sample of Elena's blood when Stefan found Enzo standing by the door and ripped out his heart. Bonnie, fortunately, managed to escape death by injecting Stefan with the cure. But she was so devastated by Enzo's death that she created a spiritual realm where she could have access to him. It could be argued that Stefan killed Enzo in the Vampire Diaries because he had turned off his humanity, again, and didn't understand the consequences that his actions would have. However, Enzo dying because of Stefan isn't that surprising. The two had a contentious relationship and didn't always get along. What makes Enzo's death so devastating is that he had a chance to be with his one true love, but it was taken away from him because of Stefan. But even in death, he only wanted what was best for Bonnie. He continued supporting her and encouraged her to move on without him, even if it meant that he wouldn't be a part of her life and the adventures they had planned to embark on together. Enzo and Bonnie are the most mature of any vampire-human couple. Enzo and Bonnie dealt with their issues in a mature and calm way. Of all the couples in the Vampire Diaries, Bonnie and Enzo seemed like an unlikely pair. However, their relationship worked. They balanced each other well, supported each other, and their love was clear to see. Catherine and Stefan, before he became a vampire, had an unhealthy relationship, and so did Catherine and Damon. Bonnie and Enzo, on the other hand, were the most mature human and vampire couple in the Vampire Diaries. Bonnie and Enzo's relationship, however, faced one huge obstacle: she was human, while he was an immortal being, which meant they couldn't be together forever. The solution to that conundrum was, of course, if Bonnie decided to turn into a vampire. Enzo gave her a necklace that had a vial of his blood in it in case she wanted to become a creature of the night. However, transitioning into a vampire wasn't something that she was interested in. Instead of Enzo throwing a tantrum, they calmly accepted that they would spend whatever time they had together, even if it wasn't forever. The Vampire Diaries had no shortage of rare supernatural beings, but it could be argued that witches were the most powerful of all of them. After all, it was magic that created vampires and werewolves. As the Vampire Diaries went on, the show raised its stakes, and the main protagonists had to fight against some powerful villains. Bonnie survived through it all and helped her friends even when it wasn't in her best interest. She lost her grandmother, experimented with dark magic, and even brought characters back to life. Bonnie truly was the hero in the Vampire Diaries, but the show failed to acknowledge that. While she had a cute relationship with Jeremy, it was only later in the show that she experienced true love, and it was with Enzo. So the fact that he died when he and Bonnie were about to start living the life they dreamt of was shocking. Enzo's death was pointless, especially because of how it affected Bonnie. Stefan having a hand in it points to the fact that Enzo's absence was meant to make Bonnie sad. While Bonnie went on to travel and live a full life without Enzo, it doesn't make his death any less sad or necessary. The Vampire Diaries could have easily ended with Bonnie and Enzo getting married and having children, just as they had planned. But instead, one of its best characters got a raw deal. Bonnie truly deserved a happy ending, more so because of how tragic her life had been during the show. Enzo's place in the Vampire Diaries story was always strange. Enzo had a difficult time fitting in. Enzo first appears in the Vampire Diaries Season 5, where he is introduced in a flashback as Damon's cellmate when they were both being experimented on by Dr. Whitmore in 1953. Initially in the series, Enzo is only seen as Damon's friend who helped him during one of the toughest moments of his life, but his role evolved as the show went on. The Augustine vampire went from being a good guy to a villain in the Vampire Diaries Season 6 after he became allies with Lily Salvatore and the Heretics. Even when he proved that he was one of them, Enzo wasn't fully welcomed into the fold until after he and Bonnie became a couple. During most of his time in the Vampire Diaries, Enzo was one of the characters, apart from Matt, who seemed like he didn't really belong in the show, because it was like he was on the outside looking in. However, in the Vampire Diaries Season 8, he grew into his character and became part of the group of heroes before he was killed by Stefan.